Around 10 years ago, the book publishing industry completely restructured. Previously, it had been an industry where it was okay to publish consistently at a loss as long as there was one big seller to make up for it. Now, publishers are expected to pull in a certain amount of money per author. This was to cover the expenses expended by the publisher on the book plus profit. The book publishers funded authors through advances and funded the printing and distribution. They had to pay for warehouses, trucks, editors, a marketing team, etc. as a way to sell books. Because of these expenses, the publisher exercised control over release dates, marketing within stores, how long a book was released in hardcover before a paperback was released, and pricing on books, including if discounts could be applied. Essentially, the publishers had all control over pricing and discounts, leaving marketplace sellers no other option but to follow. Development of digital content has changed all of that and is now forcing publishers to once again restructure their business model, but this has created problems for them and marketplace sellers in the legal arena. You've spent all of this money on this tablet or e-reader and now you're downloading ebooks. Even though you've bought something, it is still pretty much nothing. Buying a book digitally is still a book, but it's not a physical manifestation of a book. You're paying for digital content, a book, but it's not a book. There are no physical pages, no thin cardboard cover, no rough raised artwork to run your fingers over. So in essence, a person has spent money, sometimes a great deal of it, on nothing. Given the great demand, it is far easier to mass produce and distribute empty forms of nothing than the substantively rich forms of something. Digital content is much cheaper to produce than an actual book. It is also cheaper to market and sell. Depending on the author, it practically sells itself. There is no need for warehouses, trucks, or the middlemen found in bookstores. The economies of scale mean that the more that is produced and sold, the lower the price. The greater the global market, the lower the price that can be charged, meaning in turn that even greater numbers of nothing can be sold globally. Ebooks, being essentially nothing, can be mass-produced in great quantities with very little manpower and no middlemen. They are essentially nothing but profit for the companies. Pricing should have been lower than what was found in the bookstores to begin with, considering that the customer was doing the majority of the work from home. In the ebook marketplace, pricing has never been regulated. Prices were typically set by the seller. Amazon, the major contender on the marketplace, was setting prices lower for digital content than they were buying it for, and in order to boost sales of the Kindle. This was causing problems with other ebook retailers such as Barnes & Noble and Apple, not to mention the publishers that were selling the books. Other retailers had already went under for not jumping on the ebook online bandwagon earlier, and these retailers were determined not to fall like them. Legal issues were about to begin. A quick note, while I talk about Amazon and Apple, I would like to note that I'm not taking sides and both companies are not completely innocent in the matter. Amazon sells books at really low prices in order to boost sales of their Kindle tablets. When publishers refuse this practice, they block all sales on their site for the publisher. For getting profits for the publisher, this affects residuals for the authors. It also forces independent authors outside of the publishing houses, to sell at incredibly low prices. Apple met with publishers to fix the prices on ebooks, which in turn would force other retailers such as Barnes & Noble to do the same. That in turn price gouged customers. Once again, it forced independent authors to sell at low prices to compete with more well-known authors. It should also be noted that these independent authors also have to pay part of their profits to the publishers, Apple and Amazon, who self-publish these books for these authors. Just because something is new doesn't mean that the law doesn't apply to it. Ebooks do enter into a new arena for regulations, and they have brought up a lot of legal questions and issues. One such issue occurred in 2012 when the U.S. Department of Justice announced that it was suing Apple and the 5 major book publishers for antitrust violations. Having grown tired of Amazon's tradition of predatory pricing, publishers and authors were hoping that Apple could break Amazon's hold on the marketplace. Publishers met with Apple executives and conspired to fix pricing, while the publishers agreed to contract only with Apple and to no longer do business with Amazon. Remember the previous slide when it was mentioned that Amazon did something similar to the publishers? However, the publishers and Apple were in violation of antitrust regulations by giving Apple an unfair advantage over Amazon, and also by allowing Apple to fix pricing on ebooks at a higher rate than what customers were once paying. The results of this lawsuit had Apple and the publishers paying out to customers, but only for certain materials by certain authors. There's a valuable lesson to be learned here. Defining the value that publishers and agents add to what authors produce and readers want to buy will determine what their existence and importance in the increasingly digital world. Perhaps it is time to pay attention to how we produce material, where we put it out, what we put out, and so on and so forth. While authors and publishers deserve a profit for their efforts, pricing has to change in some way in order to keep and maintain the fans and readers. This digital world has created people that take life in 30-second snippets, forget about a 200-page book that costs $7 or more.